Hi, this is Ed Rising, and welcome to another edition of Ed's MATIC podcast, where everything retro beats the new if you keep it in your heart. And today we're going to talk about Paul McCartney in celebration of his 81st birthday, which was just this past Sunday. And I want to celebrate Paul's birthday and discuss his music and all that he's given to us throughout the years, with an emphasis on what he's done in the last 20 some odd years. Paul McCartney with the Beatles, with John Lennon, certainly one of the most celebrated songwriters and singers and bandmates and so forth. With the Beatles, it's just a tremendous thing that keeps growing. Fans continue to grow and loving the Beatles. It's an incredible thing. He's been responsible for writing so many great songs, the soundtrack to most of our lives. And I'm so very, very blessed to have his songs in my heart and in my head all these years. And I've been following Paul since I was about 5 years old, and I was first introduced to the Beatles. And then in the 70s, I picked up on what Paul was doing with Wings. In high school, I became a much bigger fan of the Beatles and of Paul's solo work and all the Beatles work and solo works, because my group of friends were such fans of the Beatles and their solo works. So things grew from there and into the 80s and 90s and into today, hopefully for very, very much into the future. There'll always be more music from Paul McCartney. We've been very blessed. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about some of my favorite McCartney songs through the years, and then talk about a selection of songs from the more recent years. If you look at Paul's earlier records from the 70s, certainly from the first album, Maybe I'm Amazed, stands out as an immediate classic, a beautiful love song that he wrote for his wife, Linda. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous track. And of course, I personally love the live version from the Wings Over America tour in 1976. From the Ram album, which in today's world seems to be given a great deal more credit than it did back in the 70s. There are some really great tracks on that one. Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey, and my particular favorite, The Backseat of My Car, which is just another luscious, great ballad, which is also a bit fun singing, but a great orchestration on that one. The Red Rose Speedway album is also one that's been looked at differently today than it did some years ago. Beautiful ballad, My Love, but it's also surrounded by some other really, really good songs on there, like Little Lamb, Dragonfly. It's got a lot of other really good bits to it. I'm really I've been enjoying that album a lot more. There's a great little medley that Paul put together for that record that gets a lot of critique on that. But if you check out Red Rose Speedway, you're going to find there's a ballad, there's a medley towards the end. Maybe lyrically it isn't the most adventurous, but it's certainly gorgeous melodies and nice production work. The Band on the Run album, of course, is a classic. It's Paul and Linda and Denny Lane essentially doing that album on their own. As the first grouping of Wings had kind of fallen apart at that point. But Paul McCartney had written all the songs They went out, they made a great record. They went to Africa, they recorded it, and it features great hits like Band on the Run and Jet and No Words and Helen Wheels, which actually was a single apart from the album. In America, it was put on the Band on the Run album, but in the US and in UK, they didn't include that song on the record. And then there's this great thing he wrote based around the book that George Orwell wrote called 1984. He wrote a song called 1985 about what would happen, if we had to start civilization over together after a nuclear war and so forth. So it's very, very, very good record. Band on the Run. If you have not heard that one, you got to go out and listen to that. Venus and Mars was a great record that he did the following year. And featured a lot of great tracks like Listen to What the Man Said and Letting Go. It's a tremendous album. Really very, very good songs there. He continued to have so many hits in the 70s. Silly Love Songs and Let 'Em In from the Wings, at Speed of Sound record in 76, the live record from the tremendous Wings Over America tour that came out the following year. And what a great show that is. So if you go out and you look on streaming channels and you look up the movie rock show, you can see the Wings perform a tremendous show there, or you can look for the live album Wings Over America. It's a great performance. London Town came out in 78, and I don't know if it necessarily featured huge hits, but it did include the classic With a Little Luck, which is a great song. Some more folk type oriented songs are on that record. It's a nice piece of work. And then Back to the Egg from 1979, a great Wings album. That was done then. Paul continued in the 80s to record some very, very strong records and had big hits from the Tug of War album. He did Ebony and Ivory with Stevie Wonder. Preceding that, he had the McCartney album, McCartney 2 record, which featured, he did all the recording himself and included the experimental tracks, including the Coming Up single, which had two versions, a live version and a more experimental version that were both hits in 1980 for Paul. But again, Tug of War, which was a solid record, tremendous record, featuring so many great songs, including the hit single Ebony and Ivory and Take It Away and Wanderlust, just beautiful, beautiful songs. His tribute to John Lennon here today, Pipes of Peace, which came out the following year, which included his duet with Michael Jackson, Say, Say, Say. He did the movie No More, Give My Regards to Broad Street, that I personally love, and I will have to do a whole podcast on that movie at some point. But included a wonderful single called No More Lonely Nights. And, Paul continued to write great songs, maybe not always having the great chart success, but the Press to Play record has quite a few number of great songs on there. The Flowers in the Dirt album that he partially wrote with Elvis Costello, and then spawned a great tour after that. He's had albums in the 90s that did very well as well. But unfortunately, the hits just weren't coming as much. And one of the things I'd like to talk about today is what he's done in more recent years. In more recent years, in the millennium, since let's say since 2001, he's really come up with some really, really good songs. Songs that I think deserve more attention. So I've got a song of I have a top 20 list of songs that I'd like you to take a note of. And go out and listen to, maybe if you do it on streaming, or if you do it on um, YouTube, or if you actually have the CDs and you're digging around for them or whatever. I think they're definitely worth digging out and checking them out and digging the songs. So I'm going to give you 20 songs, and then I'm going to give you a couple of honorable mentions, and ask you to just reconsider some of the songs that Paul has done since 2001, because he's just written so many great songs, and I don't think that radio or whatever marketing or whatever is going on in today's world, he hasn't quite gotten the credit, and so I'm out there to give him the credit. Let him know, let my audience know, what they should be looking for. So I'm going to start off, not chronologically. We're just going to give you 20 songs that come out from the last 20 years or so. So we'll start off with the 2013 release from the album New, and the song is also called New. And it's a very infectious track, great deal of fun, very bouncy. And, for a guy that's been making records at this point for like 40 some odd years, 50 years at that point, to come up with something that was that infectious and that commercial, it's surprising, and it really shouldn't be, because Paul's just so talented and able to write these great songs and fun songs too. So check out the New song, great deal of fun, and he seems to enjoy performing that as well. The second track on this 20 song list is from the 2020 album, his most recent pop record, and that's called Find My Way, which was written during the COVID period. And it's an album that he made on his own. Essentially, I think he might have gotten some engineering help and so forth, and maybe did a little extra instrumentation afterwards, but essentially it was done on his own. And it's essentially a song about the anxieties that you people have, and maybe as you get older, or maybe with something that was as uncertain as the COVID-19 crisis. And while maybe not necessarily directing that to that particular crisis, I think he did speak for a lot of us who maybe felt a little unsure of ourselves, and gave us a positive message that I can find my way. I know my left from right. I can drive at night. I can, get around, and I can do what I've got to do. And it's that pluckiness, that positivity that Paul McCartney is so well known for. So check out the McCartney 3 record, and Find My Way in particular, one of my favorites from that one. The third track is reaches back to his previous record. In 2018, he had released an album called Egypt Station, one of his very best records, in my personal opinion. And this is the second track off of that album. It's called I Don't Know, and it's an absolutely amazing ballad about, here we're talking about Paul McCartney on the previous song about being vulnerable and about being, showing that there is anxiety, but being positive about that. This is kind of the flip side of that, because, in I Don't Know, he's talking about questioning, why am I here? Why do I, well, why do you want me to be here? And his place in certain situations, and his anxieties. And I think it's very brave to be able to discuss those things in a song, whether it's about him personally, or if he's just acknowledging that this is something that exists with so many people, myself included. I totally related to that. And it's a gorgeous song and just very well written ballad is uh, very, very good melody and so forth. So I encourage you to listen to that. There's another track from that album, which I think is the one that follows it. The third track from the YouTube station record called Come On To Me, which is a fun track that Paul wrote, essentially about meeting women and flirting and having a good time. And it's something that we've gotten to know very well through Paul through the years. And it's kind of updated to what goes on today. And it's a great deal of fun. And so it's a nice track. Number 5 on this list goes back to the 2013 album New, and a beautiful acoustic track that he wrote about his relationship with John Lennon called Early Days. And not only just his relationship, but about his relationship as a songwriter. You know, Paul McCartney, since the death of John Lennon in particular, has had to endure a lot of press, or a lot of fans, or a lot of association with Beatles music, that he was the weaker of the two songwriters. You know, that it was John that was the genius, and Paul was the the goody goody and so forth, and less creative than John. And I totally disagree on that, because if you look at the music that the Beatles made through the years, there's so much. I think they were very equal regards to how creative they could be, how experimental that they both could be, and how Paul had a social conscience as much as John did, and how much they pushed each other as songwriters. And unfortunately, because I think since the tragedy of John's murder, there tends to be the idea that Paul is less than John, and I don't understand why we have to do that, why that's done, but it is very much something that Paul has had to live with through the years. And so this is him not necessarily making a grandstanding statement against what has been out there in recent years, but he's not apologetic either. I think he's just kind of trying to set the record straight in his own creative way, that, you weren't there for how these songs were written, or who was there when these things happened. This was my experience. And it's actually very beautiful about the actual songwriting partnership between John and Paul. Wonderful image that he puts into the song about two young guys going from place to place with guitars strapped to their back, trying to sell their songs and trying to learn and pick up as to how to become songwriters. It's very, very interesting track. And in the last 20 some odd years, when Paul's been on tour, he's generally done the track Here Today every night as his tribute to John. And I actually would love him to play Early Days, because I think that's a song about the two of them. It's really about the Beatles. And it's a quite a beautiful track. Again, that's from the 2013 record called New. Number 6 is a rocker, and that's called Only Mama Knows, and about abandonment, losing a child losing his mother. Paul did lose his mother when he was a little bit older. He was about 10 or 11 or so years old, I believe. And but he's writing this from the point of view of a young child being abandoned. And and very interesting, good rock song, just a solid rock song. The next track is from Paul McCartney's 2005 album, Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. And it's a great track called Too Much Rain, featuring really good lyrics, inspired by the silent screen star Charlie Chaplin, who past his movie career had also written songs, including the song "Smile." And while I don't believe there's any plagiarism involved here, let's not open any worms here, can of worms here. But he kind of listened to that, and that inspired him to write this song, and it's quite good, and I enjoy it very much. And again, I'm going to go back to the new album from 2013, and a very playful track called Queenie Eye, which was a game that the kids played in Liverpool that Paul apparently was very familiar with in the playgrounds back when he was young. And so he included that on that album, and it's a great fun little track that Paul enjoys playing in concert. There was a great video that was made which featured quite a number of stars and other musicians, I believe, that popped in to enjoy that, and a bit of a sing along and playfulness. It's quite good. We're going to go to song number 9 on the list, which actually is my most favorite song that Paul has written in the last 20 some odd years, and maybe since the Beatles days, really. It's absolutely gorgeous ballad called "This Never Happened Before." It's a beautiful song that he wrote for a woman who wanted him to write a song for her wedding. And so he wrote the song, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Tremendous piano opening, great melody, incredible lyric, and beautifully performed vocally by Paul. It's one of the very best things he's ever done. It was featured in the film The Lake House. I don't know if it was written for The Lake House or not, but it does feature very nicely in that film. So I would encourage you to go out and check out that movie, check out that song on whatever streaming service that you use, or YouTube or whatever, or buy the album or whatever. Chaos and Creation is certainly my favorite album that Paul has made since the 2000s, and This Never Happened Before. Certainly, probably the best thing he's done in like 40 years, I would think. It's a tremendous song. Song number 10 is a track that he did with a electronica artist, experimental artist called Youth. And together, Paul McCartney and Youth have formed a partnership in what they call the Firemen. They have made several albums of music together, all instrumental. And in 2007, they put out albums which are very experimental, very interesting tracks that were full songs. And so Sing the Changes, very, 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 very good pop song, kind of I mean, I wouldn't quite call it a rock song, but it's just very good pop. It's very very up, and it's good lyric, and good to dance to, good to, clap your hands and stomp your feet and do stuff, So I enjoy that one. Number 11, we move on to an interesting track that Paul wrote for a gaming program. And the song is called Hope for the Future. It's not on a proper album. It's I believe it's on his Pure McCartney compilation album. But it's a very well written song, very positive about the future, and it was apparently used very creatively in one of these gaming programs a number of years ago. Song number 12 on the list goes back again to the Chaos and Creation record. It's a really nice ballad, acoustic piece. Not quite a ballad, but it's really more of a folk type song, and it's called "Follow Me." Follow Me, and really good lyrics. Really, just very interesting the way he goes through different things that you and I can go through together, and to get to a better place, get to a place together, and it's it's very, very, very good track. I like it very much. Then we go to track number 13, and we look at an album that Paul did in 2011 called Kisses on the Bottom, in which Paul recorded many standards from the 40s, some from the 30s or older, I think, that he really liked, because that's just one of the things that he really loves. He loves old stuff, really old stuff. And he wrote 2 original songs sort of in that vein for that record. From what I understand on that record, he did all the vocals, but he did not play an instrument on that album. But it's a very interesting record. It's a kind of a departure from what he normally does. His voice is a bit more aged on that record, so it takes a little bit of a getting used to. But some really, really good production here. Some really good, again, stripped down production, but very good, good songs here. Good vocal performances. And the track I'm referring to is called My Valentine, which Paul has done in concert, I guess, over the last 20 years. He's performed this as his song that he wrote for his third wife, Nancy Chevelle. And it's a really gorgeous ballad. And I strongly recommend you checking that out. The next track is a ballad. It's a rocker, not a ballad. It's a rocker, and it's called "Who Cares," and it comes from the 2018 album "Egypt Station," and it's a good rocker. It's about bullying, which is the problem in society. It's about trying to stand up for yourself against bullies, and to tell people who are being bullied that there are people who care about you, and that's what he's trying to express here. He's trying to give someone comfort, but it's also a rallying cry that all this bullying that goes on, that many of us have experienced in schools or in the workplace or just in life. Somebody feels that they have to put you down to get themselves raised up. That's total BS. It doesn't really help the bully person either. They don't really gain anything from it. They may get some immediate satisfaction from it, but that doesn't really help them, because they must have other problems that they're dealing with that causes them to be bullies in the first place. And it's something that we really have to address in our schools, particularly with young people, to get away from all this bullying, because it's just a horrible thing that people have to deal with and try to grow up and get away from. It's something that I'm proud that Paul was to write a song about, to help people to stand up for themselves a bit. And so so Who Cares is quite a good song. I mean, it might not be the most lyrically challenging song, but I think it's a good rocker. I think it makes you feel better when you have something like that in your life, whether it's something that's present day or something that you are familiar with from growing up, as I certainly did. But I'm actually more concerned about young people today and trying to remove this from happening to our young people going forward. We have to do something about that in our schools and how we treat other kids that are doing this to other people. It's just wrong. And so this song speaks to me. Paul also made a very good video with this, in which he plays a therapist, and the very talented actress Emma Stone plays his patient, and it's quite a good video. So you might want to check that out. Track number 15 is another very, very pretty ballad that he wrote for his 2001 record, Your Loving Flame. The song was written for his second wife, Heather Mills. And I think it's a good track. I think Paul sang it well. I liked the lyrics in it. And though it's tinged with a bit of uncomfortableness, given how that relationship ended, I think if you look at it from apart from the McCartney-Mills relationship, it's actually a pretty good song. So I put it in my list. Track number 16 is from the album Memory Almost Full from 2007. It's a good piano rocker. It starts off with piano, but it goes into a great guitar, a scorching guitar solo, guitar-based rocker, and kind of has a real mystique to it about what it's all about and everything. So it's a rather intriguing track, and so it's kind of cool song. And Paul's performed that in concert, and I think the band really enjoys playing that too. I like to see him bring that back out if he goes back on tour again. Track number 17 is another one from the 2020 album McCartney 3. It's an acoustic piece that he wrote called The Kiss of Venus. Really, really good song, very, very well written. Paul uses his higher octave voice for this. He's singing in his higher register, and it's quite good. I think that on that particular record, Paul's voice, which is aged, unfortunately, is something that you might have to get a little used to. But I think once you do, you're going to be able to appreciate these songs for what they are. And, he's not 20, 30 years old, and very few people that when you get to 80-something years old, or high 70s that he was at the time when he made the record, they're not going to necessarily have the voice they had years ago. So you have to appreciate it for what it is and appreciate what the song is. And the song is gorgeous. It's a well-written song. And so I enjoy that, and the guitar playing. It's a very, very beautiful acoustic guitar song. Song number 18, we're getting sort of close to the end here. Is another track that he did on the Electronic Arguments album that he made with Youth, his partner in The Firemen. An electronica experimental track called Dance Till We're High, which is a great deal of fun. It's something that you might not necessarily expect out of Paul, but it's also not necessarily far away from what you would expect from him either. You know, he's not making a rap record. Okay, that's something I don't think anybody wants to hear from Paul. He's made this quite good bit of good song to dance to kind of groove to have fun with, and I enjoy that one. So we're getting towards the end here. Song number 19 is a subject that is something that I don't think any of us really want to deal with when it comes to Paul McCartney for quite a very long time. But it's a track called The End of the End from the 2007 album, Memory Almost Full, in which Paul writes about how he would want to be remembered in the event of his passing. And I've lost my father in recent months, and my mother and father both within the last year and a half. And so, knowing how I feel about mourning someone, it gives me the perspective of how I go about doing that, and then celebrating their lives as well, because I think that it's important that we celebrate our loved ones' lives rather than just mourning and missing them. And that's something that Paul, at this time, is asking us to do. He's looking at it from the point of view of an Irish wake, which essentially is a party. Getting having a little drink, having a little party, having a lot of laugh, telling a lot of good stories, singing a lot of great songs, making love. It's about life. It's about what we give and what we give to one another, and what Paul has given to us through all these years, all the joy that he's given to us through his music, all the beautiful melodies, all these great songs, to celebrate them, to celebrate him. And one of the things that I wanted to do with this podcast in celebrating Paul McCartney's 81st birthday is celebrating his great work while he's here, while he's able to enjoy it. And so I'm hoping that people will give him a greater bit of appreciation while he's here, and while he can totally understand it, that we appreciate not just what he did 50, 60 years ago, but what he continues to do, what he's continued to do all these years in writing wonderful songs and sharing bits of his life with us, and writing songs that we can all kind of relate to, helping us, making us a soundtrack of our lives. The final song in our 20-song set list is a gorgeous ballad that he wrote for the Kisses on the Bottom project in 2011. Again, taking an album of standards that he had recorded and writing something in that vein. And this song in particular is probably best written for Tony Bennett. It's absolutely fantastic song, and it's an original, and it's beautiful, and I really encourage you to go out there and find this song and all these songs on this list, and so many more, because there are so many great songs that Paul has done through the years. Go out and get that Chaos and Creation record. There's so many really good songs on there. in addition to the Loving Flame song, the Lonely Road is a great song about being alone. Riding to Jafar is a very experimental song. It's a lot of good songs on that record. There's a track called Anyway, essentially pulls a lot of things together about, getting on with our lives and being together and stuff. There's so many records that he's made through the years. And I totally encourage you to go out and listen to what he's done. And just writing better lyrics, I think, and coming up with better melodies. In these days where Paul puts an album out maybe every 3 to 5 years or something like that. I don't know, maybe it's the fact that he has more time for it, or maybe he's just recording them and putting them out in the same time span. It's just that they're released in greater lengths in between. But in the 70s and the 80s, you would think that he's written so many other great songs during that time. I think that he's just written better songs, more adult, more mature type of songs in these days. And so as we celebrate Paul McCartney's 81st birthday, I strongly recommend that you go out and check out the Egypt Station album, get that record. It's a really good record all the way through. So experimental, so many different things that he's doing on those records. Go out and to listen to Press to Play from the 80s. Really experimental stuff, really good ballads, and his incredible song called my God, I can't think of it right now. Only Our Hearts. That's from the other album. Anyway, I can't think of it right now. But anyway, I encourage you to go out and listen to these albums, and continue to celebrate Paul McCartney's birthday. And I thank you for listening to Ed's Pop-O-Matic podcast, a retro pop culture podcast, where everything retro beats anew if you keep it in your heart. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. And happy birthday, Paul McCartney. Happy 81. And I wish you many, many more to come. God bless you.